2, 1. Hi, Dawn and Dylan again for Romance Happy Hour. We are joined today by Laurel Kerr and Maxim Martineau. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yay, I said it right. Okay. So sorry, I'm bad with names. And we're very excited for today. Dylan, and of course, we've got to see what you're working on. I know you've had a lot of releases lately, and I saw your numbers were like climbing. I was over here in my sick bed cheering on the other day. And
oh, the Amazon rank? Yeah, it's because I did some promo. And I still, my book is on sale still through, I think, midnight tonight. And second chances is only 99 cents. So
I want to hear what promo you're doing because I need some help with my promo.
We'll have to talk offline because I'll have to look at my list. I did a couple of them. So, but it was good. I think it was good. And then I just turned in the prequel to the Lovebird Cafe series this week, and that's coming out in a box set in August. That one's Lemon Tarts and Stolen Hearts, and that was a lot of fun to write. It's two characters that are in the other two books, Misty and Jake, and so you get to see how they ended up together. And then I am working on, oh gosh, I have 2 deadlines this summer. I kind of put myself in with that. I have my new Radish story. It's the second season of Betting on the Bad Boy. It's going to be Betting on the Bartender, and that's coming out the beginning of July. Nice. And then I have a book due mid-August, my first book in my new series. I don't know if I'm supposed to say the name yet. We finally finalized on a name, but it's another small town Texas series. So yeah, so I got a few things going on, and I'm kind of, it's going to be great.
Awesome.
Deadlines. It's going to be great.
Deadline.
With my 3 children home. Yep, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, today was the last day of my kids' school, and I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. So.
Oh, that's late. Mine have been out. It'll be a week tomorrow. They all finished on a different day, and my 13-year-old already cleaned her closet and said that she's bored. So.
Yeah. Well, my kids did an extra month because moving from Texas, they started a month earlier than here. So they kind of did a.
Oh, that's right. They had an extra long year.
Yeah. But I've been just getting Hard to Forget ready. Hard to Love was released on the 30th. And I've been getting Hard to Forget ready. And my proofreaders are loving it. So I'm hoping that my readers will as well. And
yeah, you haven't sent me that one. I read the first one. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. And starting Hard to Resist, and I need to get that book revised for Jess, our agent, so she can get that out. So that's just what I've been doing, and promo. And I suck at promo. Laurel, what are you working on?
I just had a release 2 weeks ago on Sweet Wild of Mine. Sorry, I didn't have them right here. Here's the book that just came out 2 weeks ago. So it's mostly doing promos as well and marketing. And I got about a week before or a month before that, I got the my third in the series, the Where the Wild Hearts Are series. It's about a small town zoo and the animal residents who make the most unlikely human pairs fall in love. And the third one is going to be about baby wolves. And each one, as I'll say later, they rescue a baby animal at the zoo and have to hand raise it. So the last one will be wolves.
Ooh.
And she has the most amazing facts about animals. She did a takeover in Romance Chicks this week, and it was just awesome.
Well, thank you.
I think
it's fun to have a job where you can literally watch animal videos and say that that's your job.
I think the polar bear, the facts about the polar bear, those are my favorites. So, but yeah, you'll have to ask Laurel about that later. She'll fill us in.
Or y'all can go back there and look too. They're still there, right?
That's true.
Too. Yeah. So you can Romance Chicks if you haven't been there on there yet, and just check out the posts as well. Maxim, what are you working on?
So my debut comes out in 2 weeks. It's called Kingdom of Exiles. That's what I'll be reading from tonight. I just got my author copies in today. So right now it's been a lot of like marketing and promotional work. Just trying to get ready for like the actual hoopla that will be associated with June 25th. Other than that, it's like a lot of edits for book 2, and then I need to really start reading 3. No,
Yep.
never-ending deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you barely get a chance to catch your breath after, by the time the first book comes out, you're already knee deep in, book 2 and book 3. And
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Well, and then one of my proofreader down there, Catherine, I think I let her proofread for me, but she went and she changed. She's like, I had a name in there, right? And it was just the name of somebody's car, but she changed it for me, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Olivia's the heroine. The other book I'm working.
yeah, you get it mixed up sometimes.
I'm glad she caught that. But
That's why we pay proofreaders and editors, right?
All right, so Laurel, would you like to read to us?
Well, actually, I have a bit of laryngitis, so I'm going to have my husband read. I can answer questions, but I think I'm going to cough way too much. So you'll have to start with Sweet Wild on My Mind.
So this is a first, and I know our readers are very excited about it. They love to see husbands. So.
This is like the first husband we've actually seen now.
Yeah. Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hello.
What a trooper.
The first book is the scene is going to be near the beginning of the book, and the heroine in the book she has just returned to her hometown, and she ran into a guy who was not too nice to her in high school. He was going through a lot of problems in high school. He was a foster kid, and he ended up falling for the sort of the head of a snobby clique, and she liked to pick on the heroine, Katie. So Katie, of course, recognizes him right away when she calls the local zoo for them to come to rescue some cougar cubs she found on a cliffside. And she recognizes the zookeeper as her former bully, but he has no idea who she is. He thinks she's attractive, but he doesn't understand why she doesn't seem too pleased with him. So this is them going to rescue the baby cougar cubs.
Unfortunately, Katie hadn't counted on running into Bowie again. As wild as he'd been as a teenager, she'd figured he would have left their dusty hometown long ago. But it appeared that he hadn't. She knew one thing for certain, though. After publicly humiliating her and effectively ending any chance of her dating anyone in high school, Bowie Wilson had simply and utterly forgotten her. Ma'am, where exactly are we headed? Ma'am? Really? Although she supposed it was better than Katie underwear. Oh, I see that. But where did the mother cougar leave her cubs? The patience in Bowie's tone irritated Katie even more. How dare he act like he was the rational one? She whipped around to glare at him. Even in the harsh light of the LED lantern, Bowie was a handsome man. We're headed to a cave, she bit out. 12 years ago, Bowie could have doubled for a teenage heartthrob with a shock of jet black hair that always dangled over his piercing gray eyes. Now, with that hair neatly trimmed and a 5 o'clock stubble dusting his jaw, he looked like a model posing for an outdoor magazine. As an immature youth, he possessed a bad boy prettiness that appealed to girls, even self-proclaimed geeks like her. The years had toughened his features, hardened his male beauty into something more alluring and dangerous, even to a woman who should certainly have known better. Much better. Damn the man if he didn't have the capacity to still make Katie's hormones dance a happy little jig. She steamed. If time hadn't mattered, she might have taken them on a more difficult path. Even then, she doubted that it would have fazed Bowie. Despite never climbing on this particular rock face before, the man moved like a machine. She could just imagine his muscular forearm extending as he reached for the next hold. His bicep would flex as he hoisted his body, and Katie cursed herself. Sometimes she found her vivid imagination more of a burden than a gift. It had certainly brought her more difficulties than successes. Thankfully, they quickly arrived at a small cave. Katie started inside, but a warm hand rested on her shoulder. Even through the fabric of her t-shirt, she could feel Bowie's heat and the strength in his fingers. An unbidden shiver slid through her. "Let me go first." Bowie's breath caressed the sensitive skin on the back of Katie's neck, and she had to fight to suppress another shudder. The mother cougar might have returned. Bowie dropped to his knees and used the light from his headlamp to scan the cave before crawling inside. With his larger frame, it took a few seconds to wiggle through the narrow passage. As soon as Bowie moved far enough into the alcove for Katie to enter, she crawled over to the cubs. They moved clumsily about, searching for milk in their mother's warmth. One yawned. Its tiny whiskers flexed as it emitted a long squeak. The others followed suit, and Katie's heart squeezed. She resisted the urge to gather the little fluffs against her chest. She still didn't know the protocol in handling kits this small, and she didn't want to harm one inadvertently. "Their eyes aren't even open yet," she said. Bowie nodded. "Nor are their ears at this stage. They must be less than 10 days old." The awe in his voice caused Katie to turn sharply in his direction. He appeared just as infatuated with the cubs as she was. Was this the same man who had once tied granny panties to the undercarriage of her car, along with a sign that said, "Honk if you see my underwear"?
And then the second reading is going to be from Sweet Wild of Mine. And this scene that opens up, both of my books have matchmaking honey badgers in it. And the female honey badger, who's new in the second book, has been causing problems. And Magnus had just run after, he's the hero, her, and he just, a honey badger, and he needed to film a video for his own purposes, and he's getting a quick shower when he hears the heroine scream as soon as he steps out of the shower, and he realizes the honey badger has escaped again. And he is from the Orkney Islands, so he has both Scottish and Norse background, where the Orkneys are owned by Scotland, but they're both a Scottish and Norse background. So that's to understand what's going on in the scene. Yes.
Only taking enough time to wrap a towel firmly about his waist, he ran from the room. He paid no heed to the trail of water he left as he pounded around the corner. "Oh no, you're not getting away again, you little minx." June's voice. Magnus would recognize her drawl anywhere. But by the sound of it, Honey had escaped again. Magnus shot down the hall. It had become personal now. He was going to capture that peaty whelp and check the enclosure more thoroughly. Hell, he'd build a glass ceiling over the whole area if that's what it took. Magnus barreled at full speed towards the supply room. Both the honey badgers were constantly invading it, and the crash had definitely emanated from that direction. He'd just rounded the corner when Honey darted between his legs, chittering madly. He went to grab the beastie, his fingertips skinning the top of her coarse fur. Before long, before he could lower his hand to get a more solid grip, June emitted what could only be classified as a battle cry. Her yell, though, quickly turned panic. Magnus lifted his head to discover June skidding towards him, her arms pinwheeled in the air in a desperate attempt to gain traction. Magnus quickly glanced at the floor and saw it was Slick. From the scent, he guessed the honey badger had knocked over the cod oil Bowie had ordered for Sorcha. Sweet heavens to Betsy, I can't stop. Magnus had barely had time to release his tentative hold on Honey before June crashed into him with bruising force. Although he outweighed her by more than a few pounds, his crouched position had him at a disadvantage. He could have kept his own balance if he rolled her over his shoulder, but that would have pitched her into the wall. Unlike her slender form, his massive body was built to take an impact. Grabbing June the best he could, he used his bulk to cushion her fall. When she landed at an angle, spread eagle on top of him, he could only pray that his towel hadn't slipped, or even fallen off completely. June expected to slam into a concrete block wall. Smashing into Magnus, a wet, practically naked Magnus, felt almost as hard, but so much more interesting. As she lay feeling the strong planes of his body, she debated how best to extricate herself. She'd fallen splayed over him at an odd angle, preventing her from easily pushing herself off. She didn't want to risk jamming a knee or poking an elbow into a vulnerable part of his anatomy. And considering his state of undress, wiggling away didn't seem advisable either. Although June wouldn't mind a glimpse of a naked Magnus, she didn't want to embarrass him by knocking off the towel precariously draped over his waist. Even through her clothing, instead, she kept the rest of her body perfectly still as she twisted her head to glance at Magnus's face. His eyes were pressed tightly shut. "Are you okay, or did you get the wind knocked out of you again?" One blue eye popped open, then the other. "I'm fine, lass." June smiled. "I seem to have gotten us in a bit of a pickle." I'm not sure what the best way to climb off you is." "I can fix that." Then in one fluid motion, Magnus hoisted her in the air. As she levitated over his body for a second, she took the moment to appreciate the sight of him stretched below, all glorious straining muscle. Magnus possessed the beauty and perfection of a fine sculpture, with 1,000 times more sensuality. When he deposited her gently on the floor, she instantly missed his warmth. "Thanks," she said.
And I would like to say I sort of ended it very odd to say he was creating a video for his own purposes. And I thought that sounds a lot more dirty than it actually was. And I was trying to just not explain too much, but he's a writer himself and his editor wants him to do some vlogs with about the animals. So it's very innocent, not what it first sounded like the way, especially when the scene it launched into. So I wanted to clarify that.
Good. It was so funny. You had me cracking up.
Oh, I thought it was
you.
great.
Really cute.
And Sean did a great job. I think we have several viewers that were
Yes.
very impressed. They said he's a keeper.
Yes.
I think so too.
I can't imagine my husband. He would be blushing so red if he even if he read a completely innocent scene, he would never be able to read a guy getting out of the shower. He would be red. So.
He reads all of my romance novels, actually. So he's a trooper with that. So
Yeah.
We may have to contract with Sean to come on and read for other people sometime too.
okay. Well, he just went off to get a drink. I think that did him in. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Do you readers have any questions real quick, or did you want to hear from Maxim?
I have not seen any questions come through. Just a lot of people commenting on what a great job he did.
Yes.
I'll let him know.
So yeah, if anybody has questions for Laurel, go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll get to them after we hear from Maxim. So
Yeah, Maxim, you are up.
Hi, everyone. My husband will not be reading for me tonight. He will be super jealous to find out that was even like a thing that could have possibly happened, because since the beginning of my writing experience, he has been petitioning to be the audiobook voice. And let me tell you that I have been fighting avidly against this, because I gave him a test once with a really innocent chapter. And he made it through one word before crying. He was laughing so hard. And it was the word justice. There was nothing. It was not even a real thing. But anyway, so I will do my own reading tonight because I can't trust him to not laugh through it. So I'm going to go ahead and read the second chapter from my book. The first chapter, I believe, is out there on romancereads.com. So if you're curious, you can go read that one. And just to give you context, it's the first chapter is when the main female character, Lena, is in the middle of the beast trade at a bar, which is an illegal activity, not the bar, the beast trade. And she realizes that there is an assassin hunting her, and she tries to escape, and in turn captures the assassin and convinces the assassin to take her back to his guild so she can negotiate with the guild leader. So we'll go ahead and pick up in chapter 2 with the guild leader, who is Nock, my main male character. And it's partially because I have an obsession with him, and partially because I haven't read this chapter for anyone else before. So here we go. The wooden double doors banged open, and a gush of cool air swirled into the foyer. Wild, dark eyes lit with anger found mine. Slamming the doors in her wake, an assassin sped toward me. Sir, it's Cost. All sounds, save the fire, died. Even the voices bleeding through the walls halted. With their senses heightened by death, the rest of the assassins living in Kruer would have heard the sentry's panicked entrance. I stared at the woman. A rare glimpse of fear threaded its way through her gaze, setting my pulse on high alert. I'd only passed along the bounty to Cost, my second in command, yesterday. What about him? Amelia hid behind a sheet of glossy black hair. The charmer, somehow she got the best of him. She's at the gate. My blood cooled. Are you certain? Jobs weren't without risk, but given our talents, we rarely encountered issues. Fueled by fear and dark rumors, we were often met with stunned terror instead of the wrong end of a blade. Caleb, a top-tier assassin and one of my closest friends, turned to stone beside me as he glowered at the front door. Want me to greet them? No. I fought for control. Kruer was the only family I'd ever been able to claim as my own, and Cost was the first of my newfound brethren I'd grown to call brother. If anything happened to him... Is he still alive? Amelia cleared her throat. Yes, she's held him hostage somehow. I can't see. There's so much blood. My mind reeled. With night slipping through the windows, the bronze chandeliers winked to life throughout the manor. Shadows pooled in the dark corners of the room, crawling along the floor and snaking toward my quaking fingers. I was their leader. I had to protect my own. Where's Ozias? Permasmile wiped clean from his face. Caleb only turned his chin away from the door long enough to offer me a quick glance. Out back, training some of the new recruits. Caleb's stiff spine told me he wasn't going anywhere, and I couldn't blame him. Cost was a brother to both of us. Slipping my hands into the pockets of my trousers, I hid my balled fists to keep the calm facade in place. Amelia, get Ozias immediately. Since I'd set Cost alone to deal with the bounty, I had little in the ways of details. We only collected information we absolutely needed. Anything else invited room for judgment, and moral quandaries only caused problems. Amelia disappeared in a plume of shadow and smoke, calling on darkness to speed through the night unseen. Caleb fidgeted. Can I murder the charmer? I understood his sentiment well. I'd lost too many loved ones before not to acknowledge the unease in my gut. Losing Cost wasn't an option. We might have been agents of death, but that didn't mean we welcomed it in our own home. Killing was a byproduct of a centuries-old decree left from the time of the first king. Exiled from cities sanctioned by the king, yet forced to fulfill his contracts simply to survive. Death was necessary, but not like this. Let the charmer come. The roaring fire cracked over the hushed silence immediately following my order. The manor kicked into full gear, bodies appearing out of every nook and cranny as members rushed to get a glimpse of Cost's captor. They pressed firmly against the iron railing lining the second story, fingers wrapping around metal flowers welded to the bar. Thorns among roses, such was the life of the assassin. I needed to protect them, as our former guildmaster, Talmadge, had done. Tossing a quick glance to the fireplace mantel, my gaze snagged on a framed oil painting. Talmadge stared back at me. Weighted down by heavy wrinkles, his gaze peered through me. The first time I saw those eyes had been from the flat of my back as he'd raised me from death. You chose your death. Cost found you without armor, without weapons, and with a smile on your face. I can't say this life will be easier, but it will be new. You can move on. You can forget. We leave everything from our past in the ground. I thought death had wiped my slate clean when I followed Talmadge and became a member of Kruer. I didn't realize how wrong I was until it was too late. If death couldn't cure me, then nothing would. All I could have was Kruer, and even that required a delicate balance between love and loss. Never again would I trigger my curse, I vowed. Never again would I lose someone important. And now some charmer with an army of beasts had cost. Careful footsteps thudded against wooden planks. Sinking into the black tufted armchair beside me, I capped the fear and anger in my veins and hid my ire beneath absolute stillness. The bronze handles jerked and the doors swung open. A woman stepped inside. Wide hazel eyes flashed from left to right. She looked every bit the scoundrel I believed her to be. Faded leather breeches worn from constant use, form-fitting violet tunic with an errant thread dangling from the hem. She probably thought bringing cost here could net her some extra bits. She wouldn't live to spend whatever meager amount she kept in her change purse. My brethren waited, completely still save their heavy stares and the subtle rise and fall of their chests. She studied each one, the color of her face dropping with every passing moment. Behind her, a transparent beast with the build of a slender man cradled Cost to its chest. Thousands of infinitesimal barbs anchored him in place, and blood dripped to the floor from his fingertips, 3 of which stuck out at odd angles. Cost. His green stare found mine, and his familiar stoic demeanor cracked to one of remorse as he lowered his gaze. He would view his capture as a failure. His downcast eyes sent a surge of rage deep into my bones, and I resisted the urge to lunge from the chair. I couldn't break my composure in front of the charmer, in front of my people. Now, what do we have here? I said, as cold as any shadow. Her head whipped to me, and a few strands of hair clung to her high cheekbones. She pulled her leather jacket tight around her and took a careful step forward. I mean no harm. My gaze slid to Cost, to the dried-on bracelets of blood circling his wrists. I don't wholly believe that. Are you the leader of Krur? The slender beast sidled in closer to her. She dropped her gaze to her hand, and the frown pulling at her brows deepened. Interesting. Perhaps. I want the bounty off my head, she said. A few laughs rolled through the crowd before silence once again settled over us. She shifted her weight from one foot to the next, casting another quick glance at her hand. I kept my tone even. You're a long way from home, Charmer. I will neither remove the bounty nor permit you to leave here safely. A peculiar sheen soaked her hairline, and the beast by her side shivered. She touched her chin to her shoulder, concern bleeding from her eyes, before taking a deep breath and meeting my gaze head on. If you move to kill me, this man will die. The beast tightened its grip, and Cost's sharp gasp was a fist around my heart. God's Cost. I dragged my gaze from Cost to her. Control. Expressing too much concern when threatened Cost's life in ways the charmer would never be able to understand. It was a careful calculus drilled into me by years of living under the pall of my curse. Cost does not fear death. He's been there before. When Talmadge was in charge, he insisted we'd leave fear behind for the sake of our work. I agreed, but there weren't any rules about loyalty. Standing slowly, I gauged the distance between Cost and me. What kind of powers did this creature have? Would I make it in time? Shadows gathered in my peripheral and flung themselves to me, swathed in a cool darkness that made movements lethal and nearly impossible to track. I lunged before doubt had a chance to freeze my muscles. Thick tendrils flared outward in a puff of black smoke, and suddenly I was before her. I wrapped my hand around the soft flesh of the woman's neck, yanked her from the floor, and held her suspended above the ebony tile. She was so fragile, breakable. Hard to believe she'd somehow managed to trap my second in command. What made her so dangerous that she warranted a bounty? No matter. One swift jerk and I could end her life. Fingers wrenched between mine, and her watery eyes widened. Behind her, the monster reacted. Arms shifting and tightening around Cost's ribs, the hooked barbs sank deep into his skin. Blood spattered outward. My fingers tightened, and the woman's muscles spasmed beneath my grip. Flicking my wrist would cut off her airway, but there was still the matter of her beast. I wasn't sure I was fast enough to break hers before it stole Cost's life. A gruff whisper squeaked through the woman's lips. I'll give you a beast. I loosened my fingers a fraction, and my gaze snapped to her. Charmers didn't offer beasts lightly. You'd trade your monsters? What charmer would be willing to do such a thing? Negotiate, please. Her vocal cords flared against the palm of my hand. I could end her right here, but beasts were a rare find. Like the monster caging Cost. A beast like this could execute the more dangerous jobs, the ones that could get us captured and carted back to our door, or worse. dead. There were also tales whispered from drunken lips, rumors of a beast that could fulfill anyone's deepest desires. I tested every manner of a cure except this one. Charmers were too hard to find, too hard to subdue, and they never parted with their beasts, no matter the price or threat. The toes of the charmer's feet skated above the floor, and her creature shuddered. Koss moaned again, and Calum inched closer. In less than a minute, I wouldn't have the opportunity to bargain. He would strike to save cost. Release him as a show of good faith. She lifted her right hand to the side, and a soft light emanated from her charmer's emblem. Rosewood markings flared, and the grating of a heavy door scraping against floorboards cut the air. My eyes peeled away from the woman for a moment in search of the sound, but the hidden realm remained invisible. Icky, return, she murmured. A soft hum droned on as the beast exhaled. Dropping Koss to the floor, Icky disappeared in a flood of light, and her insignia returned to normal. Unlatching my fingers, I released her neck. Koss, medical wing, now. Knock, now, I said. He nodded once before taking his leave up the stairs. Calum, stay with me and the charmer. Everyone else, leave us immediately. Murmurs of discontent drifted down the stairs, but misty darkness curled around their ankles like the thick vines of the forest ensnaring its victims, and they left. Calum's muted red eyes targeted the woman. Hell of a show. You've got a brass set of balls, that's for sure. I'll stop there.
So good. That sounded amazing.
Yeah, that was great.
How do you come up with your plots and your world and everything?
So this one came to me in a dream while I was working on a separate story. And admittedly, like Knock came to me first, the main male character, and he just like sat down and like told me his whole life story and like explained his world. It is like his like complicated, twisted love that he couldn't have for someone else, and then it just sort of unfurled from there. And it's always like the intricacies of the beast that are developed later on. That's just a lot of like, I love animals and I love watching like anime and I love Pokemon and I love like all sorts of that kind of stuff. So it's just sort of an amalgamation of all of those things.
And that goes to the question I found earlier, which was for both of you actually, do you think of your plot first or your character?
Typically it's the character. I think that's what sucks me in. It'll be a scene or something about them, and then the plot sort of derives from there. And I sort of try to figure out who the characters are, the hero and the heroine, and what issues then are going to their personalities are going to create, and what's going to make the most conflict and things like that. So it to me it always starts with the character.
Yeah, I'll have to echo that. Like, as evidenced by the dream, like I had a very vivid picture of what Knock or who Knock was. And then for me, like I am not a plotter at all. Like I can't plot, which is strange to be a fantasy romance writer and write these like serious arcs that span like multiple books. But I just do a lot of character profiles first, and then like picture them visually, like very vividly. They always decide the actions and how they get from A to Z.
So you do like a plot board with pictures and everything, or do you just do like a Pinterest board or any of that for your characters?
Yeah, I do a Pinterest board, and I do like when I do my character profiles, they get very in depth to like internal conflicts, wants, desires, things they dislike, things they like, anything that could minutely pop up in the story. And then I do have an obsession with Pinterest, so there are boards, and there is a Kingdom of Exiles board with all the main characters and the beasts, especially for the beasts. So, yeah.
Is that you, Laurel?
It's all in my head, to be honest. I just keep all the details. I'm also not making a fantasy world, so it's not that complicated. So most of the things in the plot, I'm sort of like halfway between a pantser and a plotter. I never write it a plotter. I never write it down, but I sort of know, these are the highlights of their journey. before, but it's just all something in my head that I keep up there and then comes out onto the page. But I'm not creating fantasy worlds, which I think if I was doing that, I definitely have to write it down and make sure I had all the roles and all of that taken care of. And of course, my animal research I write down. So I know, to pull from that. And, that's one of the things I have to make sure at what stage the baby's going to be doing what. So I have to sort of figure out the timing of the book to make sure, well, the baby's going to have teeth now, or are they still going to be having milk? Or are they going to be having meat and different things? And it's hard, too, because of the seasons when animals are born. I'm sort of the seasons in my book never match up with when they're released because I'm constrained by when animals have babies. So
yeah. So do your in your research, does the research ever like spark like a plot or a subplot or anything for your book?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely does. Or it's weird how it works really well. Like you're researching it and you think, oh, is this going to ruin it, or is it going to interfere with the plot that I have in mind? But I've been very fortunate in that when I do the research, it tends to back up what I've already done and makes it even that I can take it a little bit deeper, or I can do that it can go in a line with what the characters are feeling or doing, what the animals are. So I've fortunately for me, it's just bolstered the whole plot, my research so far.
Nice.
So Laurel, do you have kids?
I do. I have a little toddler. She's sleeping right now.
I was just curious. I feel like I have 3 kids, but like I can't hold anything in my brain anymore. So when you say you keep it all in your head, it's like, oh.
So impressive.
Yes, that is very impressive. I have to write down everything, or else I find myself resurrecting a character I killed off in a book before and then realizing they're still alive.
Yeah.
I think I was an attorney. So like I'm used to doing, like I would read like 20-page, 50-page contracts, and you have to keep like all that stuff. And believe me, my characters are much more interesting than like random legal details that I need to. So I think that's why like I'm used to, my brain has been trained to retain details and then to spew it out later. So.
Yeah.
That is a very helpful thing to have as a writer.
For real. Can you like even just like remember eye color?
Yes. I mean, maybe not in like a character that isn't a main character. Like I'll have to go back and check, but my main characters, I know their eye color. Nice. But I don't know if I'm ready for a pop quiz though. But like Katie, like for example, Katie's mother, I think they have the same eye color, but I'd want to go back and double check that to make sure. But generally, I know they both have the same red hair, but so that's the thing. I'd have to go back and double check. She might have her dad's eyes. I can't quite remember that.
It's all right. We're not putting you on the hot seat right now. That's funny though.
So what about you, Dylan? Like, what was the question? I was curious though. I've had like 2 sips of wine and now I'm getting.
I saw that. I saw when Maxim was reading. I saw that must have been your hubby that brought you a beverage.
He was flaunting in front of me, right? He was like flaunting himself in front of me. So like,
we're not talking about Don's husband tonight, though. That could stay in trouble.
No, it didn't get you in trouble. It got me in trouble. No, Dylan. Oh, what do you think of first, character or plot? Like what drives you?
I think it depends. I mean, some books have come to me as a character. Between Second Chances, it came to me, like just the first line came to me and it stayed the same the entire, through edits and everything. I've had situations that have come to me where, it's like I don't really know who the people are yet, but I kind of get, I don't know, I know it's different for everybody, but I've heard a lot of people say, it's almost like you kind of see a movie kind of playing in your head. And so, I'll just kind of get this little snippet of a scene and I'm kind of like, oh, what's going on here? Who are these people? What's happening? And then you kind of dig into it a little bit more. So I'd say it comes in different ways.
Yeah.
I tend to be more like plot centric, I guess, because there's always like a bazillion crazy, weird things that are going on in my books, as opposed to, like super deep character driven. I mean, I do like to dig into the characters and, figure out who they are and what drives them and, the goal, motivation, conflict, all that kind of stuff. But usually I get like some sort of weird scene or story line or plot twist or something like that hits me. How about you, Dawn?
It depends, really. I mean, most of the time I get plots from random facts, especially with my historicals. I'll stumble upon To Tame a Montana Heart, my first book. It started because I learned that in Missoula, Montana, in the 1850s, the Army brought in camels to help try to get the Indians to the reservation. And the camels wouldn't work for them, so they let them out in the wild. So for years, for like a decade, there were wild camels in the mountains of Montana. And I was like, that's way cool. And for some reason, that sparked the plot for my very first book. And it's kind of been like that since. But sometimes I'll just have like a series in mind, like something that I want to do. And then the characters will drive the plot. But,
so we do have a question from Maxim. Donovan wants to know, when did you start writing the series and how many installments are planned?
So this book actually happened pretty quickly. I started writing this at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. I had a goal to finish it before my wedding. It was Day in 2017. So I wrote it in December of 2016, finished by March of 2017.
Oh, that's very fast.
Yeah. And then I went through, I was unagented, so this is my first book with my agent as well. So I went through some edits and then I put it on hold for while I was on my honeymoon. Came back, participated in Grey Combat, and then got my agent quickly after that. And then we went on sub 3 to 6 months later and were picked up within 2 months. So, yeah. It's been a very, very accelerated journey. So this particular story is not very old. It's still, even for me, it was sometimes when I reread it still feels fresh. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I wrote that. It's always a fun book, right? It's not like you're beating your head against it for the 100th time. But there are actually 6 books planned in the series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the first 3 are all centered around Knock and Lena's story. The remaining 3 are they will be purchased by my publisher, so I don't know exactly what they want out of them yet. I have ideas, and they like all of the ideas. We just haven't solidified on one, so we're going to see what readers' response is. So if you read the first 3 and you have a really strong idea about what you want the last 3 to be about, please tell me, because I'm super curious to see what everyone's interested in hearing or learning more about.
Yeah. We do have another question. Do any of you schedule your writing time, or do you do it on the fly when the opportunity presents itself?
Well, I have a two-year-old, so it's whenever I have an opportunity presents itself. I try to get some done before she wakes up in the morning, but and I'm very fortunate. My mother helps watch her too during the day, which helps me have some more writing time. But yeah, I can't really schedule anything.
I'm the same. I wish I could, but I work full time, and then I also help run a not-for-profit romance website called All the Kissing. And then I also, I just have a very busy life on the side of that. And I try to write when my husband's not home. And I love him. He's super supportive, but he's the kind of guy who gets excited over a commercial and then has to run in and tell me about it. Yes. So I'll be really into it and I'll be like, babe, I just saw this Bud Light commercial and it was so funny. And I'd be like, cool, you could have just ruined everything. So it's just whenever the house is quiet.
What about you, Dylan?
I have gotten to the point, once you start to get deadlines, whether they're self-imposed because you've hired an editor or if they're, through a publisher and you've got a contract, and it gets real fast. And so, I used to kind of be, I'd kind of write when I had time and felt like it and was in the mood. And I have started kind of cracking down. So I just the other day, just to kind of figure out my summer, I had to take a look at, which days are my kids going to be in different things and, how many words can I get each day just to make sure that I can make these upcoming deadlines. So I'm getting organized. I'm getting real.
That's good. Yeah,
How
you're
about you, Dawn?
busy though.
What's that?
I said you're crazy busy, even on the summer.
No.
She's always texting me like, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I'm like, girl, when do you?
Isn't everybody? It just seems like you don't have a choice. I mean, life is just busy nowadays.
Yeah. Well, I had a schedule during the school year. I was able to write between 8. Well, okay. All right. I'll confess. I came home and made myself eggs and bacon every day. And I had myself a good breakfast.
It's only because you jog. You run like 50 miles a day.
I only
I'd be eating eggs and bacon too if I went anywhere faster than at a casual turtle pace.
And I would write from 8 to 2. And then, sometimes 8 to noon if I was running that day. And so anywhere from 8 to 12 to 8 to 2. I would work. And then, but now that my kids are home for the summertime starting tomorrow, I'm hoping that I can get up at 5 and write from 5 to 10 and see what happens then. And we'll see. It depends on my
Go, Dawn. Go, Dawn.
We'll talk to you.
If I'm not too lazy, I'm I don't know. Sometimes I just think, screw it. I'll sleep in.
Which brings us to Linda's question. Yeah. She wants to know if any of us actually sleep. So
I have 4 kids. No, I never slept in 15 years.
I do sleep. I need sleep or I'm not functional.
Yeah, I wish I slept more.
Mm-hmm. I think it's hard though, because when you finally get the house quiet at night, I mean, that's when it's actually, I feel like I can focus and
see, that's the exact opposite of me. Like I was thinking about you the other day because I know that you write at night because sometimes it'll be like midnight and you're like messaging me something or like I see you post something on Facebook at like 3 a.m. and I'm like, this girl doesn't sleep.
No, we sleep.
I know you write at night and I cannot do it. Like I can't do it. I have to write in the morning right after coffee.
I do better in the morning.
Let's do this.
I'm more efficient in the morning for sure.
But nighttime, I suck. I can't do it. I can edit sometimes.
So, Laurel, your book came out.
Yes.
Your second book, right? And the series came out. And then do you have a third one planned?
Yes, that's about baby wolves. That's okay.
Oh, when is your release date for that?
I'm not sure yet. It'll be sometime next year.
Yep.
So it's into the editor, but I don't know when and it's just the first draft, so I'm not sure when the release date's going to be.
And I'm just curious because I might be the outsider here. Are you with Source Books as well?
Yes, I am.
Oh my gosh. It's like Source Books Day. Why didn't you people tell me this?
I did. It's a Source Books sisterhood.
Oh man, I'm like the only non-Source Books girl here. Man, I feel left out.
It just makes you extra special, Dawn.
Yeah.
No, we were talking before we went live. I was just commenting. I was thinking about it because I met Maxim in Denver at the Romance Writers Conference at Source Books Happy Hour last year. And I think I met Laurel. Didn't I meet you in Orlando?
Yes.
At the Source Books party in Orlando. So
yes.
Yep, and you were actually at that conference, Dawn. You just
didn't the Epcot one where
you didn't go to the private fireworks. That was pretty awesome. I will say that.
We were all at the fancy places, and I was like across the street.
Oh, you were not.
I was. I was at like the shopping center area. It was good. That was a nice little hotel.
Mm-hmm. No, that was fun. But yeah, and are you going to RWA in New York, Laurel?
No.
Okay. Because we were talking about that before you got on too. And I think Dawn is the only one that's going to New York.
Well, my daughter's going, so
right.
I'm going with her then.
There will be plenty of people to keep you company there.
Okay.
So when you're not writing, what do you both like to read? Because that's one thing that I definitely miss is, I all the stuff I read now is typically for critique partners and it's not published yet. And, then you hear all these people talking about like these hot books for summer and the best reads of the summer. And it's like, I'm not reading any of them yet. So do you have time to read? And when you do, what are you reading?
I honestly have not had a chance to read for a while. One of the books that I'm listening to, because I find that sometimes easier if I have it to listen to, is, and I honestly can't remember the name of the title, but it's Priscilla Oliveiras's first book, and I'm really enjoying it. I just need to carve more time so I can listen to it and finish it. But I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I don't have as much time to read anymore as I'd like to. And I tried to do, the Goodreads reading challenge, and I started off really strong. I think I've only had 13 books so far, and
that's pretty impressive. That's like 2 a month.
I'll tell you, I'll take it, right? Like my goal was 50, and I know some people do 100. And one day I will be that person who gets 100, but that's not any day soon. Recently, I just finished reading Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole and loved it. So good. Highly recommend, especially since I think her third book just came out, or her third book in that series, in the Reluctant Royal series. I could be totally wrong. But it's really, really a fun take on modern royalty. Prior to that, I read Alexa Martin's Fumbled.
Yeah, Alexa, she's an amazing.
Yes. I love Alexa. She is my soul sister.
Well, she's part of all the kissing.
Yes,
you, right? Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's just a joy and a wonderful person, and her writing and her tone is exactly how she is in real life. Mm-hmm. So if you are wanting to be best friends with her characters, you could also be best friends with her. So I try a little bit outside in the contemporary romance genre as well. And then I will always try to pick up a fantasy or a fantasy romance too. I just read Song of Blood and Stone by Elle Penelope.
Okay. Yep.
So.
I got a camping trip coming up next, the next broadcast that we have will be camping while I'm doing it. But I need to find.
We'll see how your Wi-Fi works there.
That's why Dylan's hosting it.
That's right. I'll hold down the fort while you're out in the woods.
I'm gonna have to find a book like a paperback. I need myself a paperback so I can disconnect from electronics and just read a book. Because I think we have a hammock somewhere still, and I'm gonna bring that hammock and I'm gonna look up my read book.
I would highly recommend for my husband for Christmas. We bought him a hammock with mosquito netting on it.
Ooh, mosquito netting.
Because we go to a cabin up in northern Minnesota, and we got to try it out last weekend, and it was great.
Nice.
I love laying out in the hammock, but especially, on a lake up in northern Minnesota. I mean, the mosquitoes are as big as birds, and they are just very persistent. So, yeah.
Sometimes in Texas, they're as big as birds, but they're also indestructible. So we call them pterodactyls down there.
Well, and in Texas, the cockroaches fly too. So it's good to have that netting.
Sorry.
Sounds awful.
All right, Madison, Linda wants to know if you've read any shifter novels.
Shifter novels. Yeah, I've read a few shifter novels. I haven't read any recently, and I really want to. So any recommendations I will take right now.
And also, Linda wants to see your covers from both of you. You have it with you.
Yes.
I have one of them. I'm not sure where the other one. My husband was reading them, so I'm not sure what he did with the other one. But that's my second book.
Laurel's covers are so cute. They have all the baby animals on them, and it just made me want to go and cuddle a puppy.
Yeah.
So I have.
Sourcebooks does an excellent job with the cover art.
They do. Pardon me. I'm dealing with some heartburn. I'm pregnant, and there's just never. Thank you. I am ready. I'm 28 weeks. I'm ready already for it to. Anyway, So this is my cover, Kingdom of Exiles, shiny gold font. The book that is going to my giveaway is actually the special edition ARC. I only have a few of these left, and you can see that it's got a special cover on it. It's got a matte finish. So
Yes, those are super cool.
And since I
I'm
didn't
gonna
have my
say that
second
we can
cover, I'm
enter
going to
this
show you
time.
my dog instead.
Ooh, yay! Listen,
She was snoring, so if you heard some snoring sounds, that was her.
And your dog is famous. Your dog is all over your social media.
I shamelessly use her for marketing. So she's gotten very used to me putting hats on her, books on her. She's really good at posing, whether she wants to be or not. She sort of learned it.
You would get along really well with me and Dylan's agent because she does the same thing.
With her dogs, yes.
With her
Although,
dogs and our folks.
I have 2 dogs. One of them is laying at my feet right now. You haven't heard him. You haven't seen him. The other one ate one of my ARCs last week or the week before. I think I told you that, Dawn. My Great Dane ate a copy of Cowboy Charming because she was going for the bubble wrap in the box, and she dug out the book and was running around the house with it. And so I don't know, maybe that will be like a collector's item someday.
Yeah,
But
for real.
the book that my dog ate.
I'll
My
buy
in-laws,
Dylan, and I'm going to frame it. I'm going to hang it on the wall.
Mhm.
A picture of your dog.
Oh, yeah, she's obnoxious.
She's the same one who ate the couch cushion when we were at RWA, right? When we were in Orlando.
She's pretty naughty.
but my
Yes,
in-laws dog also, they ordered my first book, and my in-laws dog, it's a lab, and it ate Labrador Retriever, and it ate the book. So there's a picture on my Facebook page. You'll see him very sad. Actually, when I was on Romance Chicks, I also posted that of Finn getting probably
saw that.
scolded in the shredded copy of the first book. So
I saw that picture and I was, yes, feeling, like sad for you, but glad that I wasn't alone, that my book was not the only one targeted by this species of destructive beasts. So
It's like a new spin on the dog ate my homework. It's like, that's
I know.
editor. The dog ate my book. I couldn't.
Well, in our house, that actually happened. The dog did eat my son's homework, and we sent it to school in a baggie just for proof. So she's horrible. She's horrible. I have shared on here before, I think, that my Great Dane is on Prozac. I mean, she's literally just a bundle of anxiety. And so, yeah. But we love her. What are you going to do? Does anybody have any other questions? I know we are already getting towards the end of our time. It goes fast when we're on here hanging out and having fun. Oh, and by the way, Maxim, Linda says you look great for being pregnant.
thank you.
So
Yeah. You look amazing. Like me at that stage, I was like all puffy and like I had this like zombie look to me, and you look beautiful.
I feel that way. Let me tell you. Makeup is a miracle worker.
I wasn't even awake enough to be able to put makeup on it.
That is true. I laugh really hard, and my husband sent me this quote like a week or 2 ago, and it's so accurate. Where it's like, yeah, the first trimester is when you'll be the most tired, and then you'll get this energy during the second trimester. What that really means is you'll go from wanting 3 naps a day to just 1 a day.
Yeah.
mhm.
Probably the best statement I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter, I think I literally slept until my 3rd trimester. Like literally. She
I wanna-
for some reason kicked my butt. She kicked
Yeah.
me.
So I guess right now I am sleeping more than I usually, but it's not like conducive sleep because I just like immediately fall asleep and then it totally derails my day.
So do you have any of those good dreams they talk about when you're pregnant?
I consider myself like a really good dreamer because that's where I get a lot of my story ideas from, and they're very fantasy-esque and like they're wonderful, and I like sleeping. I hate sleeping right now because they're very real world dreams and they're very anxiety driven dreams. Like I had a dream last night that someone put Accutane in my mouth because I was snoring too loudly, and then I woke up in a panic because I'm pregnant and you're not supposed to have Accutane. And I'm just like, someone poisoned me and my child. And like, it makes no sense.
It's funny.
No, I had the good dreams that they talk about that sometimes happen when you're pregnant. I was lucky enough to experience one or two of those.
No, I haven't had those.
Oh, Dylan. I can see that.
I had the weirdest, most vivid dreams, though. I dreamed one time that I was best friends with Jessica Simpson
Ooh.
and that Justin Timberlake came to visit me. And it was very, yeah. And then I would have these dreams that, my husband was cheating on me because I was, like as big as a whale. And I'd wake up and you guys have had those dreams, right? Where you wake up and you're super angry and you're slugging them and they're like, what did I do? Yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, my husband knows when I have those dreams because I literally kick his ass the next
Right. They just seemed super real. Everything seemed super real when I was pregnant.
Yes. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, stop dream cheating on me and I'll stop being an asshole.
Oh boy. Well, on that note.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming to an end here. And let's see, who do we have next time?
Next time we have Melanie Johnson and Jenna St. James.
So,
And Dawn from a Hammock in the Woods.
From a Hammock in the Woods. I might be, I have a selfie, like a little selfie light that you put on the camera. So I might be, using that, but I'll be there. So if I deeply shadow, just tell me if there's any like axe murderers behind me. And,
sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Other people had those dreams too. Thank you, Catherine and Dawn, for speaking up and making me not feel like a complete freak.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us, Laurel and Max. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Sean. He did a great job. I'm sure he'll be invited back.
Yeah, for real.
Well, thank you very much.
Contract him out.
And we'll keep the giveaways open for a couple more days. So if you haven't had a chance to enter, that's a pinned post at the top of the Romance Happy Hour Facebook page. So make sure you get in for that.
Yes. And we will see you next time.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.